Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. This is your first time listening to the podcast. Thank you. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, all that good stuff. Trey, man, we're in the dog days of the summer, as we called the last episode. So we got not a bunch to talk about, but we obviously want to keep in touch with the fans, everything we got going on. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good, man. You know, I'm kind of missing sports. There's not much. Football's off.
Baseball's here.
Is off. Football's off. Basketball's off. No. I got love for baseball, but I mean, listen, baseball just doesn't really have the same standing in our culture like it used to. I mean, Ohtani might be having one of the greatest years we've ever seen, and I feel like barely anybody's talking about it.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy because we talk about, I'm going to talk about Dame, and we're going to get to a couple of those things in a minute, but you know how we talk about these NBA players and the free agency. We came on the podcast to talk about when the games are not even going on. We're talking about Zion and Ja and Kyrie and Dame or whatever. And Ohtani is the best player in the game and is a free agent, right? Like, think about what that would be. Like, Ohtani being a free agent in baseball is almost like if Giannis was a free agent right now. Like, this would be the entire talk.
But Giannis coming off the best year he's ever had. Like, not Giannis right now. Like, Giannis coming off the championship in 2021. That version of Giannis.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, for the individual success for Ohtani.
Just for individual success. I mean, Ohtani's issues were his failings as far as team success. That has nothing to do with him personally. That's just with that team.
The team isn't very good. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy you say that now. And you got Mike Trout, like another probably the best player of his generation. And we're talking about the team that's not very good, but whatever.
Yeah, Mike Trout's like one of the greatest players of all time. Like, so for people that don't watch baseball, like Mike Trout and Ohtani being on the same team is like essentially
LeBron and Wade in the prime.
No, I think it's even better. Like, I mean, Mike Trout can go down as one of the greatest baseball players ever, and Ohtani is one of the most versatile. So I think it would be like, I'll use real life examples now. I mean, this would be like Giannis and Jokic. Like, this is like what that would be. Like, if they're the two best players in the league, that's what this would be if they were on the same team. Like, imagine those two were on the same team and they just were not going to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous to even kind of envision that.
Right. And then, so he's a free agent. Nobody's even talking about it. I did watch the All-Star game because I like All-Star games and whatnot. And it doesn't have the same, feel. I guess none of the All-Star games are really that great anymore either, because the NBA one, we complained about it too. So I was just thinking about it. It's like none of them are actually really that great.
But they still, you're still getting to the point. There was a time, I remember when I was young, and I don't want to digress too much, but when I was young, I remember Sammy Sosa and that was just Mike McGuire and Barry Bonds. Like, that's what I was watching.
Right.
Like, baseball had the culture on lock. And then all of a sudden, once the steroids things came to light, for whatever reason, it's kind of like baseball kind of just fell out of favor with most Americans, and it doesn't really seem to ever regain that grasp.
And I do think, and we could probably have an overarching discussion later of how to get baseball back, but a part of it is you got to get people like the young kids to actually start playing it. And like we talked about it, the best athletes are not going to play that sport. It's just usually too expensive, and it takes too long to get to the pros. Like, nobody wants to go to their dream isn't to make it to the minor leagues. You know what I mean? Like, at least in the NBA, we talking about summer league. These guys get drafted, they on a team. I mean, let's say if you're a first round pick, like, you're on the team now. You know what I mean? Like, you're on an NBA team now, making millions now. Like, minor leagues, you got to go through. That's even just a start of the process. So, we get all these stories about if let's say if it was different, Trey. Let's say these players. And by the way, for baseball is such a hard sport. The minor leagues is important, to be fair. You can't just really go from an 18-year-old kid in baseball and go play like you can in basketball. It's a little different. But think about all the players that we talk about in other sports that got drafted by Major League Baseball teams in the 15th and 20th rounds. Tom Brady, Michael Vick, Russell Wilson. Who knows if they would have, let's just say if it was hey, you can go straight to the majors. Would some of those guys actually have picked, you know what I mean? Like baseball, I don't know.
I mean, I think a crazy what if is like you said. I think some of those guys really would have went to baseball.
Kyler Murray's a great example. He's literally a first round pick.
Or even Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
I think they would go to baseball, but it's just baseball has just kind of lost that luster. And if we had to, like you said, this is probably for a deeper dive. Maybe we should discuss this next week or the following week.
Yeah.
Now that we're in this dead period. But I just think one of the other things I have to mention about baseball too is that it just requires so much space, like actual physical space to play the game, that I just think a lot of times in these major cities, kids just don't grow up playing baseball for that reason. Where basketball, you can play that in your driveway. Football, we could toss the football in the parking lot, but baseball, you just need a lot of space to play it. So I think that might be one of our main reasons as well.
That's true. More space, more equipment, right? Like you can't just have a ball, right? You got to have a ball, a glove, and a bat, right?
Yeah,
like,
I forgot about that too. You're right. You got to have a ball, glove, and a bat. So you're talking about more money. Like it's not really conducive to being played for most kids these days.
Yeah, and again, there was a lot, and we talk about like even back in I guess probably like the 80s, 70s, 80s, baseball was still a prime sport. And was the main sport. And it was the same thing. And there were still people that didn't grow up a lot of money playing it. I just think it's the popularity that comes with it. And like you said, I think the steroid era is the biggest thing. And for people that don't know, baseball got hit hard with steroids, where basically guys were illegally using steroids, which everyone knows what that is, to get stronger. And they cracked down on it in the late 2000s, I should say. Probably say like about mid 2000s, they cracked down on it. This went all the way to Capitol Hill. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it just put a stain on baseball, where guys were caught cheating. Some guys lied about it. Some guys we don't ever know because they didn't really get tested, but because some guys have just played in what's now called the steroid era. So some guys that we consider like really good. So for example, like everybody knows, like Big Papi, David Ortiz, never got caught using steroids, but because he played in an era with Barry Bonds and other guys who, allegedly used steroids, people don't know how to feel about him because they're like, well, was he maybe using it too? We don't know. So a lot of that stuff, kind of kills baseball. And once you start getting into the intricacies of it, like I'm pretty sure people listening to me right now is probably snoozing even talking about it. So like, it's just kind of hard, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but yeah, you're right. It should be like an intricate discussion that we should have. But I did want to just pivot real quick to the Dame situation, because I did bring it up earlier. Not much to report with the Dame situation. I did want to just ask Trey, because we've talked about it on numerous occasions. What's the actual price here? Like and I'm just asking you, Trey, I'm gonna just paint the picture for you. You're Portland. So You're the GM, right? So you're thinking about Portland's best interest. What is your goal that you want out of this situation? Like, what is your price? What is your timeline here? Because I think that's the main question people are asking, and I have heard people have different answers. I have a thought, but I want to hear yours.
So mine is just looking at it from an overarching point of view. And I think that
if you're Portland.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just an overarching point of view from Portland. And I think what we're looking for is just as many picks as possible, because the best player you would get from Miami is Tyler Hero, but Portland doesn't need any guards. They just drafted Scoot. They have two guards on the team, Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp, who possibly could be really good in the future. So like, we don't need any more guards. And I love Tyler Hero, but he's not a guard that's going to take you over the top. He's not like somebody you can build your franchise around, so we would still take him. So I think it's just about getting as many picks as possible. And I think that the idea that Portland dislikes Miami offer, I think that's getting a little bit overblown. I think the main issue is that that's the only offer they've received so far. So they know that the asking price is just what Miami's willing to give up right now, but they want to kind of drive it up. They want to see if they can maximize this. And maybe this is just the maximum offer they're going to get, just because Dame has said, hey, I'm only going to Miami, and if any other team trades for me, I'm not going to be very happy. So maybe he's poisoned the well, and maybe this is the best offer. And at a later date, Portland will have to come to realize that and accept it. But I think it's just about driving their asking price up as high as possible just to get more picks. Now, I don't think there's a certain number of picks where they're going to say, okay, we're fine, we settle at that. I think just the idea of getting as many picks as possible.
I completely agree with that. If I'm Portland, right, and obviously I'm a Heat fan, so I'm never thinking about it from their perspective. But in this case, if I'm Portland, you basically hit the nail on the head. I don't need another guard. By the way, real quick, because I'm always going to bring this up every time, I'm never going to get over the fact that people were really out here comparing Tyler Hero to Jordan Poole. And you already know how I felt about that. That was an unfair comparison. Jordan Poole does nothing else but get buckets. Tyler Hero actually does other stuff on the court. So people that were
I'm agreeing with you, but let me just see one more year. Now that Jordan's in a new situation, let me just see.
Okay, well, Jordan showed up without a haircut. All right, so all I know is I know what I got to see. He didn't even care.
And a beard.
Much, so yeah. So, but the point being, Portland, they don't have to rush, right? I can wait around to see if there's going to be a deal. I already know that the one deal is on the table, and like you said, no other team is going to go make an offer for Dame just because Dame is being adamant that he just wants to play for the Heat. So they don't want to take that risk. Portland's like, well, maybe you're saying that now. Let's see how you feel in a couple, like in a week, a month, a couple months, right? So they don't really have to rush. So like they can basically wait till the last minute because the Heat's offer is always going to be there. Now you go to the Heat side of it. The Heat are like, well, here's our offer. We don't have to budge because though our offer may not be the greatest thing ever, you don't have any other offers. So why would I keep counter offering you, giving you stuff better where I know eventually you're going to have to come back to me? Now, the situation could change. We could be talking about this, and in a week from now, Boston comes and is like, hey, you know what? We don't know if Dame wants to be here, but we think we can convince him. So here's our package. Here goes Jaylen Brown. Now, Boston does that. Now the Heat got to be like, all right. Let's see what we got going on besides just Tyler Hero and a couple picks. So I think it's just a game of chicken. That's what I've been calling. It's just a game of chicken. I think it's eventually going to happen because in most cases, these players get what they want, like we talked about. So Dame's probably going to get where he wants. So Heat fans that are besides me in my life fretting, don't worry. Dame's going to probably be here. I can never say it with 100% certainty, but I think it's pretty close to it that they're going to have to get the deal. Now,
I think it's a good bet.
Yeah, and Trey, the thing I wanted to mention, it's going to have to be a 3-team deal. I think we can agree on that at this point. Like they don't want Tyler Hero. Not because Tyler Hero isn't good, but because, like you said, they have a surplus of guards. So it's going to have to be a third team. Now, this is just me selfishly, Trey, and tell me what you think about this. I think Tyler Hero, Brooklyn's a name that's thrown out there. There's a couple teams that may be a good option that may want him and need him. I would love if he can find his way to the Spurs, Trey. I would absolutely love it for obvious reasons. You get to play with Victor Wembanyama. You get to play with you play with Spo, the great coach. Now you get to play with possibly the greatest coach ever in Coach Pop. And you go to an excellent organization, well run from the top to the bottom. And, their goal is always winning. And the Spurs are a team that would have the assets. They can include another first-round pick, right? Back to Portland, because Portland doesn't really want our picks as much because the Heat aren't going to be as good. So that'd be a win-win for everybody. But I would love for him in terms of to see him flourish in his career. Like we talked about Jordan Poole going to Washington, and we're like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Just I know he's going to get buckets, but it's not the greatest situation, organization, whatever. Tyler Hero with the Spurs, great winning organization. That's what I'm thinking.
I think it would be a great fit overall. I just don't know how Greg Popovich would take it, just because Tyler Hero, what he lacks on the defensive end. And, Greg Popovich, he's always been big on two-way players, whether that be David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. He kind of likes that kind of player. And I'm just not sure.
But he has tolerated guys that aren't. Tony Parker. There's guys that didn't play defense that he tolerated.
He did, and that's because they had Tim Duncan and others behind him. But maybe he'd feel that same way with having Wemby in the backcourt, where he's more tolerable to somebody that doesn't play, the greatest defense in the world. So I would be kind of interested to see Tyler Hero go there, and I think he would be a good match for Wemby because, again, Wemby's not somebody we expect to be scoring 20 points per game, when he first entered the league. But Tyler Hero, he definitely would take off some of the offensive pressure. He's more in the defensive end. So I think we brought up a great point. I would myself personally like to see that happen.
And I think the Tyler Hero defense thing gets understated too, because he's not a horrible defender in terms of like effort. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna try. He's gonna be like an average defender at best. And like you said, if you got a guy like Victor Wembanyama back there, what is there a better situation to have like a not great defender in the perimeter? You got a guy that can protect the rim. So I mean, there is some ways for it. So my goal is I'm hoping Tyler Hero goes to the Spurs. If he has to go, that's my dog. But if he has to go, he's got to go to the Spurs. But we were just talking about Tim Duncan, and that got me thinking. We were talking about this right before we got on the pod. There's a couple guys that I would want to see play in this era, Trey, because I like see clips of older players and stuff like that. I'm like, man, this guy would be really good to play in this era, whether it's the pace and space or whatever. We don't have to do like a draft per se, but like Tim Duncan isn't the guy that comes to mind. I have one particular guy that comes to mind. I think it's the obvious choice, and then I'll let you go with yours. I just would want to see Shaq. I think that's the obvious answer. Like, I don't know. I know he can't shoot or whatever, but I would just want to see Shaq in an era where there's Shaq and 4 shooters around him. And he doesn't even have to be the greatest passer like Jokic. Like, you just have no choice but these centers that are surviving that are 6'9", 6'10". I mean, I don't know how they would even survive at the same time, especially like young athletic Shaq with the Magic, and you know all about that.
Like you said, I just don't understand how the centers will even survive in this era. It would be interesting because if he has to go guard Draymond Green, the young athletic Orlando Chat might be able to do something, but heavier, huskier, Los Angeles Chat, I don't know that version.
That was a nice way to put it too. That's a real nice way to put it.
Oh yeah, I was trying to be nice. I like Chat. I don't know how that will go on the defensive end when guarding players along the 3-point line. The readers, I don't know how they would even have a chance of guarding him. So I think that would be one of the top picks that I could give out as well. I think
who would you want to see? Because Shaq's the one for me, but yeah, go ahead.
See, so I'm not going to do the one I want to see the most. I'm going to do a deep cut, but it's still relevant in today's NBA discussion, overall NBA discussions. And that would be Kenny the Jet Smith off of Inside the NBA. And the reason I say that is because no. I mean, I'm using him because he's relevant, but the reason I say that is think about how he played. Remember when he played Orlando Magic in the 95 finals and he hit 6 threes in was it game 6 of the finals and the game 5, I'm sorry. And that was an NBA record. That's kind of what he was. He was a scoring point guard that shot a lot of threes, and he was very quick. Like if you watch some of his old tape when he was in the FIBA World Cup, like in the 80s, he was super quick. And you're talking about a point guard that shoots a lot of threes and is super quick and get to the rim.
Was in the dunk contest. Well, I also was in the dunk contest too. So like this just shows athleticism. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. So you chose athleticism. That's kind of like the prototypical point guard that we have today. And I'm just kind of curious, like, would his career have been better? Because he was a good player, a good role player, but I mean, that's all he was. But would he have maybe kind of squeaked into at least one, maybe 2 All-Star games if he was to play right now? I'm just kind of curious. And again, he's still in the culture. We all know him, so that's another reason I would pick him.
Man, I mean, I think that's a good pick. I wouldn't have thought about it, but I just don't know how much better Kenny would have been, because I think he made like 1 All-Star team. Now, obviously, his career got cut.
No, he never made one.
So, he never made one. Okay, all right. So he didn't even make one. So, but his career got cut short with injuries. But I think that's a good pick because, like, maybe in a different world, he's a 3-4-time All-Star guard just in the era that he plays in now. So I think that's a good pick. I mean, his counterpart on TV, I'd love to see Charles Barkley. You talk about a tweener in this type of league, right? Like I would love to see Charles Barkley in this type of era. Like we just named the whole TNT set. So, you know what I mean? Like, I would love to see Charles Barkley in this era. The guy I was actually thinking of too, was a guard. And he played in the late 2000s. So, I mean, it's not like he didn't get to play with it at all. But Allen Iverson. I would love to see AI play in this era. Like,
that's loud. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Imagine with his quickness, athleticism. And remember, he was a guy that wasn't even shooting. He could shoot threes, but he wasn't a guy that was shooting a bunch of threes per game. So you imagine he would shoot a couple more threes per game. And this is a guy that's already averaging 28 to 30 without shooting a bunch of threes, without getting, a lot of the foul calls. Obviously, I mean, bro, he was playing with, Aaron McKee and Mutombo. Power forwards and centers that couldn't really shoot. So there was really no spacing. Like when you talk about Allen Iverson with some of the teams now that with the 4s and 5-mans that can shoot, like, come on, man. Like I can definitely see him in a world averaging 31 and 7 or 8. Putting up I don't know about James Harden triple doubles, but James Harden numbers with the points and assists. Like I could definitely see that being a type of thing. But yeah, AI was fun to watch in his own era. I mean, really, Trey, if we want to be real, I mean, they're not all the same, but all them little guards. Give me Stephon Marbury, Steve Francis. You know what I'm saying? Like all those little guys. I don't know if all of them would have fared, but AI is definitely the one.
And I think they would have been exciting. Like Steve Francis, just with his high flying highlight material kind of style of game. I think that he would have just been, he'd have been top 5 in Instagram views and TikTok views. Again, I don't know how much he would have contributed to actual winning basketball. I don't know.
Yeah. We're just talking about just to watch for fun, like as a pure fan. Yeah.
Exactly. Just for fun. I think that'd be one main ones I'd like to see. And then listen, I know I'm gonna be a homer in this one, and you're gonna hate me for saying this. But I would love to see young LeBron in this era. Like I'm talking about 2008 to
That was the
2010.
low
That
hanging fruit
athletic.
one. I didn't want to pick that one, but yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
I
no.
feel
But
you.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just doing it because I'm his biggest fan.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's
I would
fair.
love to see that athletic LeBron in this space and pace kind of flow of game. I mean, dude, could you imagine how he would be showing up the defenses and like just attacking the rim?
You mean without Zajunas Ilgauskas and Varejao clogging the paint? You mean that? Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be a lot. Or Drew Gooden or Carlos Boozer or any of those power
Listen,
forwards that couldn't shoot.
sometimes when you name those teams, like when you were just naming about Matumbo with Allen Iverson and Eric Snow and all those guys, listen, the NBA's come a long way, and not just the players. I'm talking about the GMs. Because when you look at some of those rosters that they put together, like just 5 or 10 years ago, they were just atrocious. Like I don't even think y'all are really doing your job. I knew what you were looking at.
But to be honest with you, I can't even call it atrocious because that was what the entire league was doing. Like you don't know until you know. Like right, like you don't pivot until you pivot. Remember the league was kind of a type of way until like the big 3 era. Then you got everybody trying to get 3 stars. Now we just talk about it now. Teams aren't really trying to get 3 stars right now. Besides the Suns, everybody's really like, oh, we could just do it with 2 stars, and then maybe we'll go back to 1 star. Maybe we'll go to 3 again. Like it just all pivots. I think that's really hard for them. Like if the league is played that way, it just is played that way. You know what I mean? Like the Suns back then with the Nash and the pace and space, they kind of brought an element to it that was different, and then teams just had to adjust. I just think that they're doing what they can at the time. But yeah, I mean, when you look at just the skill level and the talent level of these guys, not that those guys weren't good or anything, but it's just on a different level now. Just what it is. I don't think it's an indictment on them or anything, but yeah, no, I mean, for sure. I mean, I don't know. It's really, really hard to tell who would be great in this era, who would not be. I definitely think I usually see it where guys can be more great going forward than backward just because of, the nutrition and the training and all that stuff that they have now. I mean, but my general rule is like if they were all-time great players in their era, I would probably assume that they'd be all-time great players in this era. And that includes the guys that people think is slow, like Larry Bird.
No, that's my general rule as well.
Yeah, so I mean that's the way I usually look at it too. But yeah, man. But before we get out of here, Trey, I know you got something to bring up, but I wanted to mention real quick. We don't really talk about too much about the layoffs with ESPN and all that, but we are both fans of Jalen Rose and I think Jeff Van Gundy. So how did you really feel about that? And for those who don't know, Jeff, they both got laid off from ESPN. You see them a lot during the finals coverage, which is why we're bringing up those names. ESPN layoffs happen all the time. Usually cycles between every couple of years or so. It feels like there's a report like this. But I'm really confused with those two just because I felt like those people were pivotal at ESPN in terms of like providing really good content, especially Jeff Van Gundy. In terms of like bringing real basketball insight to the broadcast.
Like I said, I'm just shocked from a fan perspective, what ESPN is doing. But just to go a little bit into the nitty gritty, not to bore people, what it really comes down to is Disney's Bob Iger, who's over Disney. What they're realizing is that cable is dying. And I think just a couple of days ago, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, he even insinuated in an interview that, hey, we might be looking to sell off some of our cable assets. So we might be willing to sell off ABC and ESPN. Wow. Cable's dying. Not as many people are watching ESPN and ABC and all these cable channels. So they're trying to look for a quick exit. And unfortunately, people like Max Kellerman, Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, those who made a higher salary at ESPN, they just got the boot. It wasn't any fault of their own. It's just that, hey, we're not making as much money. So we're not going to be willing to pay these kind of larger contracts, and you guys are just going to fall through the cracks. I don't know what to tell you. And it's disappointing just from, like I said, from a customer and from a fan perspective, because this just makes me even less likely to watch ESPN. Like I'm not more likely to watch ESPN now knowing that these good commentators are off. Like I'm less likely to watch them. So it's just kind of like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where ESPN, they're already losing customers, but now the product's getting worse, so now you're going to continue to lose customers.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the Jeff Van Gundy one to me was the hardest one just because I literally watch games and he like points out things that I wouldn't have realized as a basketball fan. But then I can kind of see from the perspective of, look, I know he does some complaining with about the refs and stuff. And, he has his little quirks. And like maybe to a viewer, they don't really care about all the intricacies of the game like us that are basketball heads do. So maybe they just want to be entertained. And like maybe that's a segment of it too. And then Also, too, I know we listened to some of the same content with like Bill Simmons and stuff. I heard Stephen A. talking about it. You know, when you think about the countdown shows, I mean, they really don't even have enough time to provide good content, like between half times and the end of the games. If you realize, like Jalen Rose and Will Bond, they're getting like 2-3 minutes to go over a point. And TNT, they get this entire time to kind of break it down. Now, granted, Charles Barkley and Shaq and Kenny are Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Kenny. They are great within themselves. I'm not saying that they're great because of just the time that they have, but that also does help because they have freedom and they have the time to kind of like get thoughts out and really, really discuss stuff. Whereas opposed to ESPN likes to do the quick hits and they want to get a bunch of advertisements in and stuff. And like, I just don't know if that's the solution. I know cable's dying, but you know what's not dying, Trey? The ratings for Chuck and those guys. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, people still tune in. We talk about it all the time. We're legitimate basketball heads, and we tune in on Thursday nights on TNT, no matter who the team's playing, right or wrong, just because we want to watch those guys. Like, that's just what it is. So unless you're going to find talent like that, at least you got to explore with the talent you have, maybe trying different programs and stuff like that. And I'm sure that's stuff that they're thinking about, but I just didn't know if that was a solution. That was just a tough sell for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you brought up, and I hope they even try that. But, you know, with these kind of companies' decisions, we don't know who's making the decisions at the top and what's going through their mind. So, you know, who knows what we get.
Right. But anyway, man, we're going to let people go. We wanted to keep this one short and sweet. So I want to thank everybody for joining us once again. We got a lot of content coming up for you. I know it's a dead period, but we got some cool stuff. We're going to have some drafts coming up, some cool topics that'll make you think, kind of let you know where our allegiances lies with players besides just the teams and stuff like that. So tune in for that. We'll have some special guests. I'm assuming, you know, people ask for Jesse a lot, so we'll probably got to bring Jesse and JP back at some point. So we got a lot of that going. But of course, let us know how you guys feel. We're on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Leave us a comment, you know, like, subscribe, review, do the whole thing. It definitely helps us out a lot. And I will swing it to Trey.
You know, thank you again for joining us for another week of this wonderful show. I really do appreciate it. Like Nolan said, like and subscribe for more. Thank you.